Hey, welcome to this video. You can now integrate Claude Code into code editors. That means it supports now Visual Studio Code and JetBrains. And since Cursor and Windsurf are forks of Visual Studio Code, they are supported too. That means I will show you in this video how you can install Claude Code within Cursor, how you can use it. We will do some simple example with an AI chat, and I will show you some examples and how they work together. And before we are going to do this, I'm going to explain you why it even makes sense to combine them two to get the best of all these AI tools. The reason why not many people talking about this is that Anthropic, the makers of Claude and Claude Code, didn't make a big announcement about this update. I found this X post. Yeah, by the way, you can now use Claude Code within your favorite IDE. That's a one-liner with big announcement, in my opinion. You can find here a link for IDE integrations. And yeah, it tells us here that it can be used within Visual Studio Code. This includes Cursor and Windsurf and JetBrains IDE. You get some nice features here, like the quick launch, Diff Viewing, context selections, and some more things, which we will look at in a minute. But before we're going to look at why does it even make sense to combine these two, let me open Obsidian. The reason why it makes sense to combine Claude Code and Cursor, like this here, is that you get the best of both worlds. You get native SOTA state-of-the-art performance from the new models Opus 4 and Sonnet 4 from Claude Code, so you don't have to consume them via API. And in my experience, you get just better output and just better code generation within their own ecosystem of their providers. That means Anthropic models are optimized for Claude Code, and OpenAI models are optimized for ChatGPT models. And this is also the reason why I have talked a lot about it, that I'm using O3, OpenAI O3 outside of Cursor. The first thing is that I'm getting better results, so the agent works much better there. And the second reason is to save costs. So I can use it unlimited, meaning that I'm staying within the $100 Pro plan, and I can use O3 as much as I want, and I don't have to think about any external API costs. And of course, we want to use the best coding model available and running it with the best tools available. And this is what Claude Code gives us. As I remember, I've read somewhere on their announcement post of Sonnet 4 and Opus 4 that I think they run a refactor task about 7 hours long with sustainable performance. And so Opus 4 is also kind of unmatched for big edits, and you always have context available for your code base. This is a big deal. So just these two advantages which Claude Code gives you has its reason to use it in Cursor. But Claude Code is a CLI, and a CLI always looks like you're in the Matrix, which is pretty cool, but it scares off beginners. And so I'm sticking to a Visual editor, and it gives me also some benefits like the tab model and the CMDK for fast completions, especially in Cursor. We get a Diff Viewer, but we get a Diff Viewer now too for Claude Code in combination with Cursor. And I always can switch models and control the output with rules, so with Cursor rules. And the last thing is, Cursor is a Visual Studio fork. That means we get all the tooling like debugging, installing extensions, using the command palette within one editor. And this is something which I don't want to miss, but I really like to have the power of Claude Code, like the native raw performance of Claude Code inside Cursor. And so it makes sense to combine them and team them up. But be sure that your expenses will raise a lot if you're using Claude Code and Cursor together, because either you're using Claude Code with the API, which I would not recommend because you always have to track your costs and monitor if you have spent, for example, for a big feature about $20 to $30. So like a session can cost this. And I'm not a big fan of this. I want to have a flat price and I want to use it kind of unlimited. With the Claude Max plans, they've introduced the max plans recently, and you can already start with $100 per month, which sounds a lot, but in comparison, what you get, it's almost worth it. And even the $200 plans is probably worth. So if you have a team, I would give every team member a plan, and I would equip them with Claude Max so they can be much faster, much more efficient, and they just need to learn how to work with it. I'm using the $100 per month plan for now, and it's enough for me since I have the Cursor plan, so the $20 plan. here, which gives me unlimited completions plus 500 fast requests, and I can work within these limits. And I have also the pro plan for OpenAI, so I'm kind of having my flat pricing in these boundaries, and this is okay because I'm building production ready applications and I'm using it for my courses, so it makes sense to having all these plans. This brings me to the point when we should use this, because it's cool that we have all these tools, but if you stack them up, you have a really high bill at the end of the month. And I would suggest when time is more important than money. This is the most important part for me, because when I'm faster, when I can deliver my products faster to the client, when my team is fast and more efficient, then this is more important than money. When working with large code bases, why? Because we've talked about this context, and Claude Code is very good in context handling, and we can also use Cursor for specific context, like selecting some block using CMDK, and you can also use it with Claude Code. Building production applications fits with time is more important than money. Or if you just want the best of the best and want to try out tools, then why not? It totally makes sense that you get the best coding model, the best output, and using one of the best code editors out there. And again, you can use Visual Studio Code or Windsurf, which is also a fork of Visual Studio Code. It's supported too. Good. And we already finished with the explanation, so now let's move on to Cursor and let's install Claude. I've already opened a startup project. I never start from scratch if I build applications, and I highly recommend that you do this too. Why? Because LLMs tend to install a lot of outdated libraries, and every time you generate a new application, the stack will change a bit and you will never be consistent. Always go to the official websites for the framework you want to use, like for Next.js, go to next.js.org. If you want to use Nuxt.js, go to the documentation and install it from there. Or the one I'm using at the moment is Tanstack Start, but I'm using a modified version of Tanstack Start because it doesn't ship with ShadCN and with a Tailwind CSS4. I have created my own starter. It's just a minimal starter which adds ShadCN and Tailwind CSS. You can clone it from the instructor repository. I will put it into the descriptions, and just go here to code and clone it into your local. Then you can open it in Cursor, and you have basically the same project in Cursor, which I have. I will also push this repository into the same instructor organization under AI chat example. You can find it then here under repositories under AI chat example, and the starter you can find here, and you can find a lot of more useful repositories. Why I'm using Tanstack Start? I really like the white bundler and the whole white ecosystem, which gives me a really fast development experience. And since I really like Nuxt.js and I'm a heavy Nuxt.js user, I don't want to miss this experience. But Tanstack got my attention since it's using React, and React is very well trained for LLMs. That means the code generation is far more accurate than with Vue and Nuxt, unfortunately. If you work in a team or you're looking for a job, most of the companies are looking for React developers. So I want to make it more easy that we are working in the React world, but I want to use Tanstack since I really like the speed of it. Or if you just want to work in your own repositories and your own project, if you're using Python or anything else, don't worry, the installation will be the same for every project. You will do the installation once, and then once Claude is installed in your project, everything is fine. Again, if you're using Windsurf or Visual Studio Code, the procedure is exactly the same. Let's start. The first thing is we need to install Claude. So you can go to anthropic.com/Claude-code, and you are going to copy paste this command here. You can also find it in the documentation here. Yeah, this command. Then switch to Cursor. You have now two possibilities to install it. First, you can just put it here into the chart, but I wouldn't recommend it because it will take up some fast requests. I would just open the terminal, the integrated terminal, with Command and J or Control J on Windows. And then here this window will open. And I'm just going to paste here npm install -g Anthropic AI Claude -code. Then hit enter, and it will install now Claude Code. I have already installed Claude Code, and that means you just need to connect your Claude account with the Max plan or your API keys. That's the only difference you have to take in the initial steps. As I said, I would go for the max plan, or if you just want to try everything, you can also start with the API key. And then you land here, and after that you just type here Cloudy. And Cloudy will install the extension, so the cursor extension, which you can also find here under Claude Code, and you can see now you have an extension installed. This gives you this little icon above here. So with this icon, you always can run Claude Code, but you can have only one active terminal. That means when we're using it here, it will disconnect below. Okay, so I'm going to close this again, terminate, and I'm also going to close this here. And when the IDE is disconnected, means that Cloudy doesn't have a connection to cursor. And this is pretty important. And if you lose this connection, then you just can reconnect it with slash, and with slash you get all the commands available in Claude Code, which is pretty cool. And you can type here IDE, enter, and then choose the code editor you're working at the moment. And this is cursor, and then hit enter. Okay, the IDE is now connected, and you can see this with this green circle here. And now let's try to open a file with Command and P, or you can just open it here in the Project Explorer. And usually Cloudy should switch here to the index.tsx, that it has its init context. And this is not the case at the moment. Hit /quit. So you're going to quit Cloudy and just type Cloudy again. And it will reindex the files. And now it has context to the index.tsx file. That should fix the issue here. And now I'm going to select here the function home, and you can see that Cloudy switches to 7 lines selected. So it has context from cursor. I can even select all lines here, and it is real-time context. Meaning that we can just type here, explain me in simple words why home exists and how I can use it. And you're not using cursor for now, you're using Cloudy. And if you're in the max plan, you don't use any fast requests, you are in the usage limit of Claude Code. Okay, and Claude Code explains now what this welcome function does, but this is not really interesting. And maybe we want to do a change welcome to hello from Claude Code. And it will find the line, and it will now generate the code for the new H3 heading. And what you can see now is the new diff editor. A diff editor inside cursor with Claude Code. You have to look here above. So first you can accept the proposed change, means green will be accepted and red will be removed. Or you can reject the proposed change, meaning, okay, we want to keep welcome, but stick with the previous change. Or we can also choose in the terminal, so like yes, yes, and don't ask again for this session, and no, revert the changes. So we will accept the change, and then we have here hello from Claude Code. I'm going to start now the development server to show you how this looks. If you're a beginner, you could just here write start the development server, and cursor will figure out how to start it. Or you open here a new terminal, so you can just here open a terminal and you can switch between the terminals, and then you can write pm run dev. And why dev? Because the commands are defined inside the package JSON, and within the package JSON you can find the dev command, which starts a development server. The build is for building it for production. Start is for starting the application in production mode, and test for testing. Okay, we want to start the dev server, so we run pm run dev, or you can do it with the chat. I'm going to hit enter now to start the dev server, and it's available on your local host 3001. And I'm going to click and open it. And you can see the preview on the left with localhost 3001. Let me close the Project Explorer with CMDB, cursor chart with CMDI, and let's move back to Cloudy. And then I'm going to open index.tsx again, and you can see here hello from Claude Code and hello from Claude Code. We can easily switch between here colors, since Tailwind CSS and ChatCN is installed in this project. And now I'm going to show you the file references. For example, if you want to build a simple AI chat or like in Chat API, then we write here, create a simple chat UI in index.tsx, which is this file, and we want to use the home route for the front end of the chat AI, and create a chat API, which the user sends messages to it. And this API should just return mocked dummy response. Mocked and dummy just means that we are getting predefined results and don't connect it to a real API. And we are going to save this inside. Let me see if we have a folder here. Yeah, we create a folder lib and we will reference this folder here. You can also drag and drop the folder here inside lib for the chat functionality like streaming. So if we want to get the response token by token, you have seen this already in ChatGPT where you get the response immediately after you type, so token for token, and the API will be placed inside API chat TS. This is a very specific prompt to build an application step by step, so iterative, and we are using these file references that the LLM knows where we want to put these files. And the same works for, quickly open this, and the same works for Cloudy. Copy paste this here, and you can here create a simple chat in at index ts. Yep, here we are going to reference the lib folder. And it can't find the lib folder, you can see it here. Since it's not indexed yet, we can just leave it here and it will find it anyway. Okay, then let's hit start and let's wait until code generation has been finished. And what I can do is that I don't have to manually accept always the changes. I can click on yes and don't ask again for this session. That means the agent will run autonomously, that I don't have to accept this always manually. But be aware, if you, for example, accept the command rm for remove or git, Cloudy can remove all your files or can commit any files which you don't approve before. It's like the YOLO mode in Cursor, which you can find here under features. Where is it? Yeah, here's the YOLO mode, enable auto run mode, which allows the agent to run tools without asking for confirmation, such as executing commands and writing to files. And here in Cursor, you have an allow list, and here you have a deny list. I, for example, added git and rm because I want that Cursor asks me if it wants to delete a file or send something to git. Cloudy has finished the code generation, and let's look at the browser. Okay, we have here chat window. Sorry, I encountered an error. Please try again. Okay. And for example, now we can ask Cloudy, why do we get this error? Since we're using mock data from the API, find the issue and fix it. So it will debug now and we'll see what it can do, and we'll probably index more files so it can find the issue. Cloudy tells me the issue has been fixed. Let's test it. Let's try something. Oh yeah, perfect. So we can input anything in our chat and it will respond. It's mock, that means it's test data, but that's enough for us to try. You can see it supports streaming too. That means we get the answer piece by piece. And this is better for UX, so we can already read while it will generate the answer. Now you have seen how we can use Claude Code with file references, with add and choosing files, which is pretty useful if you want to do specific changes. And I would highly recommend that you're using this and also using it in Cursor, because if your code base grows and it gets large and more complex, you will need to be very picky what to add to the context. The last thing I want to show you are some safety guards. I've shown you before, you can run this auto run mode in Cursor and add some tools to allow list and to the deny list, and you can do the same within Claude Code. And for this, just hit / and you can find all the useful commands here. And there is a command which is called allowed tools. Then you can decide with the arrow keys, do you want to allow something or do you want to deny something? Yeah, and then you can build your rules. So for example, you can hit deny, and then you can write here bash rm : * and hit enter. And what I've done here, I deny that Cloudy can delete any file. Now it will ask me, do I want to save this in this local project, or do I want to add it into the global project settings or in the user settings? And Cloudy settings are pretty powerful, because if you want to share the same guidelines and the same rules, then you can just share this Cloudy settings and you can avoid that Cloudy does some unintended changes. I'm going to add this to the project settings. Then you can find the settings here in the Cloudy folder under settings.local.json. And you can see here that it's created a simple JSON file with permission allow and deny. And we can write here, for example, also bash git. We don't want that Cloudy is doing any git commands. And if you want to know more about these allowed tools, I've created a blog post on instructor.ai, and you can find it in the blog section under the latest coding posts. You can find here how to use allowed tools in Claude Code. I've listed here some examples which you can use for the allow and deny list, including some JSON file if you want to use JSON only and not the CLI. And then I'm going to show you some more useful commands. Clear conversation history and free up context. If something gets messed up and Cloudy feels slow, you can just wipe out your complete conversation history and free up the context. And the compact does the same, but it summarizes your complete conversation history and put it into a new chat. It's the same like in Cursor. With Cursor, you can clear the context with /reset context. Or if you want to have something like the compact mode, you can go here to add and then past chats, and then you can reference a past chat. So the past chat will be summarized and you can continue with this chat. Okay, then we have cost. Since we are using the max mode, we don't have any costs, but if you're using the API version, then you can here monitor your costs. And one thing I want to show you is the /model. Here we can switch between Sonnet 4 for daily use, and here we have Opus 4, which takes more usage limits, but it's the best coding model available at the moment, and means this is the default setting. But if you're doing a lot of small changes and not so complex changes, maybe consider to switch to Sonnet, that you have more usage available. But since we want to have the best of the best, it's recommended that we use Opus 4. That's it. If you have made it so far, thank you for watching. I hope I could give you some understanding why it's useful to use Claude Code within Cursor or any other code editor. It gives us more powerful tools within the Anthropic universum and brings it to our code editors. Again, it's the best of the best, but it comes with the drawback that costs will raise. That means you will probably need to get the max plan to use it effectively. I would recommend for hobby projects and beginners that you stick with Cursor. Cursor is powerful enough. The fast requests are very controllable. That means if you hit the $20, you always can stack up to more fast requests, and you will maybe hit $20 or $40 or $60 a month. You can monitor everything. You don't necessarily need this integration. On the other hand, if you just want to use Claude Code with the CLI, and if you don't like any visual code editor, keep Claude Code. It's a good product. I will do some more tests. I will work on some real-world applications in the next weeks with the combination, and I will keep you posted on X. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, click on subscribe, and I will put every information in the description below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.